Welcome to the October 27th K-Talks at NU. We're very happy to see so many people here today. We've had a few people communicating with us in advance, so we're all ready, and I'm going to be introducing our invited speaker. My name is Marilyn Plumley, and I'm a faculty member here at Nazarbayev University. And first I want to tell you just a little bit about our K-Talks, the Korean Studies Center. In addition to a variety of academic lectures and seminars and conferences, we initiated this series, which is called K-Talks at NU, to give people who are not necessarily yet academics, primarily the students at NU, a chance to explore some of the issues that they're interested in regarding life in Korea, the ways of doing, the way people act and the way people interact with each other in Korea. And we have sessions on studying in Korea, living in Korea. And today we're very, very pleased to have with us someone that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. But before that, I want to introduce our two student co-moderators, co-hosts for the day, Diaz Takinov, and who is a PSIR, Political Science and International Relations student, and Nazarke I have to pronounce it, Mukhlisova, who is also a PSIR student at NU. Diaz is the president and Nazarke is the vice president of the PSIR Student Association. Unfortunately, Diaz is ill today. He's not going to be with us, but we have Nazarke down there. Would you like to wave, Nazarke, so everyone can see you? Say hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm very excited for this talk to get started. So yeah.
And we also have with us today some of the Korean professors from the Korean Studies Center. If you would like to just say hello and say your name. Professor Ho-Yoon, Ko Ho-Yoon, would you like to say hello?
Hello, I'm Ho-Yoon Ko. Nice to meet you all, and thanks for coming.
And Professor Park.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chano Park, and thank you for coming all.
And Professor Cho, our Korean language instructor at Nazarbayev University.
안녕하세요. Hello, my name is Yeonju Jo. Nice to meet you all, and I hope you have a good day, a good time today with us.
Okay, and before I introduce Mina, our guest speaker, I just want to go over some basic, we can say, etiquette rules for the day. First off, I'm looking at black screens with names, but we would like to see your faces. So we would really like you to turn on your videos so we can see who you are, we can see who we're interacting with. So if you would please turn on your screens, your video, that would be great. And I think most of the people have used their real names so that we don't have avatars talking to us. And your microphones are muted right now, but when we have time for the Q&A, you can unmute yourselves with the mics. If you have any issues, you can send questions to the chat platform, and Nazarke will be moderating that. And just to let everybody know, we're recording this session today so that you can rewatch it or tell your friends about it later if they weren't able to attend the live show, the live presentation. Okay, well now, right now I'd like to introduce Mina Sheikhha. Mina, can you say hello so that your screen comes active?
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you for coming today.
So Mina, as many of you have probably read on the introductory materials, Mina is originally from Iran, and she came to Korea about 10 years ago when I was also living in Korea. So I've known her now for almost 10 years. At that time, she was an undergraduate student. She came back to Korea later as a graduate student. She stayed in Korea now. She's been working for 5 years for a Korean cosmetic company, and she has a very nice position as the business development manager. She's basically doing international marketing for this Korean cosmetic company, and I think Mina can fill in the details if you'd like more details about that. But what's very special about Mina is that she has developed herself. She came to Korea as a young undergraduate student, And she has shown a lot of perseverance and a lot of creativity, a lot of what we say in American English, we say spunk. She has determination, a kind of fighting spirit, fighting as they say in Korea. And she's made a life for herself. She's made a career for herself. She's gone all the way from undergraduate to master's degree. And now she has a very nice position in a prominent Korean cosmetic company. And I'm very proud to present my friend Mina, and I'm happy to introduce all of you NU students to her, because I think she's a wonderful role model of someone who sets standards of excellence for herself, expects the best of everyone that she interacts with, and she has she's kind of a self-made woman, and I think she's going to talk to you today about her life, and feel free to ask her questions after her presentation. So with that, I would just like to turn over the microphone to Mina, and she's got a slide presentation, a PowerPoint slide presentation, and she's going to be talking to us for roughly 15-20 minutes, and then we'll be open for Q&A. Mina, the floor is yours.
First of all, hi everybody, this is Mina. You heard Marilyn's introduction of me. I'm very flattered. I hope I would one day really live up to all of the nice things that she always tells about me. Thank you, Marilyn. I would start with sharing the presentation that I prepared for today's talk. The title is My Very Own Hand Miracle. I chose this title because, as many of you might already know, South Korea actually started as a very economically poor country because it was a war-torn economy, and it built itself up and become one of the most successful economies in the world today. And I put this title because when I came to Korea in 2012, I came here with very few people notice about me, but I actually came to Korea with only $50 in my pocket and nothing more. And I actually made it here. And now today I feel more secure financially and spiritually, personally, and professionally. So that's why I named this talk. And I believe that if I could make it as an Iranian woman who I have been told throughout my life that women can't do it, Iranian women can't do it, I feel like anybody can. So this is why I named this presentation, My Very Own Hand Miracle, a personal journey of making it from scratch in South Korea. Basically, my journey actually started from when I was like a teenager in Iran. Maybe not a lot of you guys know, or maybe a lot of you know, because these days Iran is on the news a lot because it is clashing with the US a lot. Well, there are a lot of clashes between Iran and the West, and there's a lot of propaganda by Iranian government. So there is a lot of the West is evil, the West is bad, and the West is trying to steal our culture, etc., etc. So there's a lot of propaganda against the Western culture, and there's a lot of effort by the government to avoid, to avoid the people from becoming Westernized. So that's why there's a lot of backlash and a lot of advertisement against Western culture or anything Western. So that's why you don't get a lot of positive publication about the Western culture. Meanwhile, there's not a lot of negative backlash about anything Eastern. That's why I think personally that a lot of Eastern drama, a lot of Eastern culture, a lot of Eastern, a lot of Eastern things actually found their way easier in Iran compared to Western things. And you can find a lot of that Iranian market is actually saturated with a lot of Korean products, not just Korean products, actually also a lot of Japanese products and a lot of Chinese products like Samsung, LG, Hyundai, etc. Like a lot of Korean chaebol, like big conglomerates. You can find their products all over Iranian markets. And you can find a lot of K-drama, like K-pop music all over Iranian markets, like Iranian youth are listening to them, and there's not a lot of government backlash for these kind of movements in Iran, while there's a lot of government backlash against like Western equivalents of this. So that's why Eastern material find it actually easier, find its way easier among like Iranian youth. And this way I actually found easier access to learning about Korea and East. So that's how I kind of become Easternized. That's a term I coined myself versus the term that the Iranian government is trying to coin, which is like Westernizing people, etc., etc. So after being familiarized with a lot of cultural contents that was easily accessible in Iran, I learned about South Korea and its history, and I learned about the Korean history and how what Korea used to be before the division, and I learned about the Cold War and the history of how Korea and South and North Korea used to be the country, and how the division happened, and how North was being ruled by communism, while South is being ruled by democracy. And I was astonished by the differences that were happening in were existing in the governance and the socioeconomic outcomes that happened due to these differences in governance, and the overall prosperity that the South was enjoying due to these differences. And as a result, I actually become interested in coming over here and starting to study international development studies, which was actually my major in master's. That's what I studied in master's. And this is where I gained interest in this major. And I actually learned a lot about how South Koreans built their own country from scratch, and how they started like investing a lot in education and with hard work and building on their social capital. They started making this huge economy that they have made together. And I was tempted if I can actually build the same thing by investing on my own education, and if I can model the same thing by working hard myself. So I was tempted to try the same thing. So I decided to come here and get in as a student. So I started studying on ways to get into Korea as a student, and Korean government has been investing a lot on studying, and it has been when I was getting in here in 2010. It was investing on getting international students. It has not stopped this investment. There are a lot of programs for internationalizing its campus life, called like NIED scholarship program, which is like Korean government scholarship program for bringing in international students to Korean campus. It's a program run by Korean government. It sponsors graduate, undergraduate, graduate, PhD students. It's a tuition waiver program. It also gives you like a research fund and like allowances for like purchasing books and like paying for your life allowances, to taking care of yourself during your studies. And there are also other programs that other universities offer for learning Korean language. There are tuition waivers that universities offer to you if you're just interested in Korean language, and if you are good at Korean language, they just give you tuition waivers. You don't have to pay for university fees anymore. You just can come over and start studying in a university. So there are many good programs because Korea really believes in education, and it does offer a lot of good opportunities to students who want to come over here and study. So the necessary qualifications that you need to have is to be good in Korean language, have a good English skill, and be good at studying. So have a good high GPA, and have a good background, like have good recommendation letters from your university professors, and of course have some good extracurricular activities. And being good at document provision is also a plus, because Koreans really care a lot about how organized you are. This is a huge plus. I did not know that not that many people are good at this, but recently I have learned that not that many people are good at gathering documents and proving that, bringing in documents regarding their skills and what they have done so far in their life. So Korea is pretty big on that. They do need to know that you know how to prove yourself. So this is one of the skills that you do need to have if you want to make it in Korea. So once you make it as a student here, you can expect a lot of fun. Like Korean students do like to gather together a lot, especially and for school projects, for just hanging out together, because they get a lot of stress from studying, so they need to vent a lot. This involves a lot of drinking, of course. And they do a lot of activities together. There is a lot of learning opportunities. There are a lot of like student clubs that you can engage in, a lot of chimi senpai, like a lot of how do you say chimi senpai in English? I forgot the word.
Hobbies.
Fun. Thank you. A lot of hobbies. There are a lot of clubs for hobbies, learning hobbies together, and things like that. There are a lot of on-campus activities. So if you are big on doing on-campus activities, South Korea is definitely the place. But you have to seek out these activities. And if you are not good at Korean language, you're going to have a difficult time. Like in spite of the fact that Korea is trying to internationalize, if you do not have a good command of Korean language, you will have difficulty integrating. So having a good command of Korean language is necessary. There are universities that you don't necessarily have to have like a good Korean language skill to survive, like where I studied, which was Hankuk University of Foreign Languages, HOPS. You did not necessarily have to speak good Korean to survive, but still, if you did know your way around Korean language, you would have a lot more opportunities to study and prosper in the university compared to someone who knew no Korean. So that skill, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for you to know this language before you come in. And that was pretty much it about the school life. And after graduation, it comes getting a job part. Again, no Korean language skill means no job in Korea. There are, of course, a lot of people who tell you that they don't have any Korean language skill, but they get a job. Of course, there are people like that. But if you are career driven, if you want to make it big, if you want to make something of yourself, and you don't just want to be a salary person who just survive and just make enough money to put some bread on the table, then you cannot make it big without having this skill. It's if you want to make a name of yourself, knowing Korean as much as you know your own mother tongue is very necessary. There are people who survive it here without good command of the language, but they don't necessarily make it big. So if you are planning to build yourself a career here, you do need to speak good Korean language. And of course, pretty much everybody these days speaks a certain level of English, but I would say that it's still a language that a lot of Korean populace, especially in the office area, in the office community, are not comfortable with. Like if you are in the college education field, you would feel like, oh, a lot of Koreans speak good English. But that's not the case when you're in the business world. That's not the case when you're in the office. A lot of Koreans don't feel comfortable speaking English. So a good command of English can also take you a long way in the business world and in the office life. and it can make you really stand out. And any other extra language can make you stand out even way more. At the moment, top of the list, extra languages that can make you like be that extra, super extra special candidate are Russian, which you guys have like a super advantage there. Spanish and Arabic. These 3 languages are at the moment very hype here in Korea. People are looking for these languages. But then again, if you look at any job ads, they are asking for a person who can speak Korean, English, and one of these 3. Like any respectable firm who's big enough that is capable of sponsoring a visa, which we will get to in the other slides. I said visa. Every expat's main concern in Korea is having a valid work and stay visa. If you do not have a visa to work in Korea, it can make things very difficult. I know of so many foreigners here in Korea that are really good at what they do. They're experts in the field in the field of their work, but then they do not have a company that is capable of sponsoring them the visa that they need to be staying here, or that they don't have the requirements, that they are not eligible for getting a visa in Korea. So that's why they had to go back to their home country. So they couldn't stay in Korea. So getting a valid work and stay visa is also one of the main concerns of any expat in Korea. So getting that visa is important, and I cannot tell you this enough, but speaking Korean language is one of the biggest, main important points that can help you in getting a valid work and stay visa in Korea. Especially these days, Korean governments is making it more and more difficult for foreigners who are in Korea and are not having a good command of Korean language. So post-graduation life in Korea means that you are out there for a visa hunt. You need a visa that would allow you to stay in Korea if you're planning to stay. If you're not planning to stay, you can go back to your country with your experience in Korea, and you can get a job in any respectable firm that would do work with Korea. If you have learned some Korean language, you have an advantage compared to a lot of people back home. So you're all set. But if you're planning to stay, you're on a visa hunt. The visas that you have you can apply for right after graduation is a D10 visa, which allows you to look for a job and do an internship. E7 is a visa that you're applying when you want to get a professional job. F2 is the visa that you're getting when you want to stay in Korea for a short, it's called short-term residency visa. That is like a point system that you would be eligible for if you get enough points. Then there's F5, F6, like so many others. You can visit this website called Hi Korea for more information. These days, there are a lot of good English resources out there that would help you out regarding the kind of visa that you can get. But by the time that you actually get your E7 visa, you are really good on track onto finding a permanent stay in Korea situation for yourself. Once you graduate from a Korean university, you're eligible for a D10 visa that will allow you to stay in Korea for a period of 2 years, which is this is an opportunity that the Korean government used to offer to everybody, like without any question. But these days they are making it more difficult for foreigners who graduate from a Korean university but do not speak any Korean language. So you might have graduated from a Korean university, but you do not have any command of Korean language. So they might make it difficult for you to get a D10 visa. So they are changing the rules constantly. So if you are planning to come and live and work in Korea, I cannot emphasize enough for you, you really need to invest more in learning the language. And D10 visa is a visa that does not allow you to work legally in Korea, but it does allow you to do an internship. With an E7, with a D10 visa, the company that hires you can do kind of like a test on you, see if you are like compatible with them. So it allows them to see if they wish to hire you for a longer term. So a lot of companies don't want to hire you right away in Korea. A lot of places actually, like if you're a Korean citizen, they normally hire you for a period of 3 months. They call it like a tests hiring period for 3 months. And if things go well, then they sign a contract with you. When they hire a foreign employee, they cannot do that because of the visa status. So what a D10 visa does for you is that it allows you to actually be hireable by a Korean firm. So that is the advantage that it gives you. And only people who have studied in a Korean university can get this visa. It used to be granted to people who did have a job before in Korea and lost their job and they were looking for a job. But now they are making it more restrictive. So now they're only giving it to people who studied here, got a job, lost that job, and want to look for another job. So they are making it more and more restrictive every day. So once you found a job in Korea, you will be granted an E7 visa by your company. There are very few companies who are eligible to give you an E7 visa, because E7 visa is called the professional employee visa. For this visa, your company has to have like so many points. The government they have to run by the government for so many special, they have to be eligible to be able to sponsor your visa. And not many companies can do that. So a lot of companies just refrain from sponsoring an E7 visa altogether. That's why a lot of expats are actually looking for an F2 visa. So what an F2 visa is that a foreigner who has an E7 visa would try to run for this point system to get the F2 visa. And once they have the F2 visa, then they can be hired by any company. So these days, there are a lot of foreigners who have the F2 visa. So a lot of Korean companies who are hiring foreigners, they're just hiring foreigners who have the F2 visa. So it's making it more and more difficult for foreigners, for new foreigners to be hired by companies. So the pool is getting tighter and tighter. So we are trying as the expat, not me anymore, but the expat community is trying harder and harder to make it, trying more and more to make it more fair for the new expat community, to make things easier for the future expats to get a job here in Korea. But what you need for an F2 visa is to get at least 80 points on your E7 visa to get an F2 visa. The points are applied to you based on some qualifications that you have, which is your age, your education, the salary, your topic, which is your Korean language level, your KIP classes, which is your Korean integration, Korean social integration classes, which is like a Korean government run classes that Korean government runs for you almost for free, because like class placement tests and graduation tests, you have to pay some fee to get in. You can look up the information on this website, sushinet.go.kr. And then there's also volunteering work. Some points are given to volunteering work, and also not having done any criminal activity in the past, so your points wouldn't get deducted, would help out with getting an F2 visa. And that is the ultimate goal of any expats that I have known so far. And well, once you have the F2 visa, then from then on, it would be a smooth ride. I know that this might sound overwhelming to you guys, but once you actually make it to university from there on, it would be a smoother ride than it sounds right now. So for now, your ultimate goal will be to get into the university. Surviving office life in Korea is, right now, a lot of you guys might have, based on the questions that I received in advance, a lot of you guys sounded like you were scared of the office life in Korea, but that's not as scary as it used to be. How to survive office life in Korea would be that, well, relatively office hours are longer in Korea than other countries. They are from 9 to 6. Recently, because of Corona, there have been some flexible office hours. And some people have been even working from home. In my company, we didn't have the luxury to do that, but we have been working flexible hours, like from 8 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30. Like I can go to the office from 8 to 11, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. like whenever I choose to. It's up to me to pick what time I want to go. There are also a lot of unpaid overwork. Korean government is actually trying to reduce this. So they are doing these random checkups in which they all of a sudden come to the office after office hours and see how many employees are in the office, like especially for middle-sized companies. And if there are employees in the office and there is like a CEO present or higher person present, they would actually crack down on the company and the company might get fined. So there is like less and less, there is more and more pressure on the company to force its employees to leave for home earlier. So there is some positive work being done now in Korea to stop this lots of unpaid overwork. There is still a lot of yes-manism. Like this is not the case for foreigners, or at least that's my experience. Like my CEO, for example, expects all of his employees to tell him, yes, sir, no matter what they think. If they think that he's saying something wrong, they still have to tell him, yes, sir. But I get to speak my mind to him if I disagree with him. So I don't know whether that's because I look foreign to him or whether it's because I have proven myself to him. That's still up for debate. I don't know. It's you can experience it for yourself in the future, hopefully. But you do need to have positive attitude and you have to be hardworking to survive office life in Korea. And I have personally seen that it doesn't really matter what you're doing and where you're at, as long as you're hardworking and you have a positive attitude, you can survive the worst office scenarios in the world, and you can make them into a better situation. And if you are a slacker, that you like taking it easy and you just wanna, you just want a certain salary income to feel safe, Korea is not the country to work in for you. Just do not come to Korea if you just want to feel safe and have a certain income and you just want financial security and you don't want to put in the hours and you don't want to put in the hard work. This place is for you if you really want to build a career and you really want to put in the extra hours and work hard. Silver lining of all of this is that I personally love my job. I could never get this position back in Iran, especially as a woman. I could never be taken as seriously as I am being taken here. My CEO listens to what I have to offer. My company has a multinational atmosphere. I could never get that back in my own country. My CEO is driven, he's passionate, he has a lot of plans and ambitions. Sometimes I laugh at his plans because I think they're so big, but at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, it's impressive that he has these plans. I enjoy working hard and growing in the business world. So if you are driven, if you like these kind of scenarios, you're going to like it. Iran is laid back and is lazy, and I don't like that kind of atmosphere. So I don't think I would have thrived as much as I thrived in Korea. I don't think I would have gotten this much out of studying in Iran or working in Iran as I have gotten here in Korea. So, it's not easy. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was not easy being in Korea. Surviving office life in Korea was not easy. It's still not easy. I'm still getting used to it, but it's totally worth it. And I personally believe that if something is easy, everybody would be doing it. And I like it because it's not easy and not everybody is doing it. And life is short. So you gotta make sure that you're finding things that thrive you and stick to things that make you happy. And that will be it. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I talked too fast. I tried to make it as short as possible.
Well, Thank you very much, Mina. Thank you very, very much. That was very interesting. Nazerke, would you like to take over and handle the Q&A now, please?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the presentation. It was such an informative and at the same time inspirational presentation. Like, I really did not know a lot of things. Through social media platforms, we have received a lot of questions. I'm not going to ask all of them, but we're going to ask the most common ones. So the first question is about a job market, something which is always constantly on the minds of people, especially of students. Considering that a person has all the qualities that you have mentioned in your presentation, like good knowledge of Korean, good knowledge of English, Russian, diploma from Korean university, is it still harder to find a job for a foreigner in Korea?
To be honest with you, it also depends on the kind of interview skill that they have. Like I work in PFD, which is like we run cosmetic brands, and we also are in charge of interviewing people. So we have interviewed a lot of foreigners here, and a lot of them are coming from like Russian speaking countries, and it also depends on like attitude of the interviewee. So sometimes they have all of these skills and they come in and it doesn't feel like they're the right fit. Like it feels like the person comes in and they feel like they own the place, or they don't bring in the right attitude that they should be bringing. So a lot of this is also like not just about the skills, it also is about the kind of attitude that you bring in. You have to be looking like you're a team player, that you are also humble on top of all the skills that you're bringing, that you are willing to work hard, that you are a team player. I think I said that twice. And that you are and that you're not afraid to learn, and that you don't, it's attitude is also very important on top of the skills. So if you are walking into a room and you're acting like you own the place, it might be good in a lot of countries, but I wouldn't say that Korea is one of the countries where that is good in. I don't know, Marilyn, correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, I mean, it's fine that you emphasize team player, because I think that's one of the most important characteristics. Somehow, if you're going for an interview, you need to convey that you're willing to. Team player means so many things in Korea, but it means being willing to take maybe less than an ideal situation and run with it and make the best of it. I mean, I could speak for hours on that, but being a team player and showing that somehow, if you were doing an interview, is maybe through documentation or showing how you helped a company or helped a team persevere through problems. But team player, and I think the other Koreans here would also probably want to emphasize that. But back to you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting trend. Like, it's interesting that you specifically emphasize that trait. The next question that we got is about the living standards in general. How expensive is it to live there? Is, for example, rent and medical services expensive there? Is medicine free there in South Korea?
Medicine is not free. The thing is, like, I think a couple of years ago, like around 3 or 4 years ago, it became mandatory by Korean government that any foreigner, okay, this is better. Any foreigner who enters Korea and is planning to live in Korea for longer than 3 months is mandated by Korean government to pay for national insurance plan, which is $50, roughly $50, less than $50 per month. And that would give you like access to national insurance, that would give you access to health insurance. So basically, if you catch a cold in Korea, which is very common, like it's a common illness. So I'm giving this as an example, so you guys would have a common feeling of how expensive it is to catch a disease in Korea. If you catch a cold in Korea and you want to go to a doctor, if you have insurance, you pay $4 for hospital visit. and roughly $4, and you pay around like $3 to $4 for your medicine. And if you don't have insurance, you pay around $15 for the visit, and you pay around $10 for the medicine. And I think that's pretty sweet deal for the with the insurance. It's pretty sweet deal because you don't when you do get a disease, it's not necessarily always the cold. Like sometimes you might get into an accident and the insurance can be a lifesaver. Like for example, my husband, for example, had an accident walking on the street, and he fell down and he had to go to the hospital and get stitches. So if he didn't have the insurance, he had to pay around $1,000 for the stitches. But with the insurance, he ended up paying like $100. So that can be a huge difference, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. We got a question in the chat. However, if the audience has any questions, please save up till the end. We're just kind of covering the questions that were pre-asked before. The next question is about the university. So you've mentioned like there are very demanding requirements to get into Korean university. Once you get there, is it harder to study in Korean universities compared to universities in other countries?
I don't really think so. To be honest with you, the thing is that Korean students are really good at studying. They are really good at studying. So it's like what I feel like what impressed me the most about Korean society is that Koreans are in it for the win. Like they study hard and they play hard too. So it's like if you are playing with a Korean, they play like there's no tomorrow. And when they are studying, they also study like there's no tomorrow. So it's like if they want to get an A+, they will get that A+. So it's like if you want to compete with them, you have to really want it. Or it's like if you don't really want it, you have really little chance. But also at the same time, there is one thing that I personally, and it might be my personal misconception, I might be wrong, this is a personal opinion, but I do feel like that there is a little bit something that is lacking in the Korean education system, which is called creativity. So if you have creativity, you can actually beat the system to some extent. So there are ways to go around this studying hard, which is through creativity. So if you can find ways to study more creatively, you can get better grades easier. So there are ways to study more creatively. And I wouldn't say it's more difficult to study in a Korean university compared to other countries. If your task is to write a paper in English, for example, and there is a student in your class who has studied abroad. There is a Korean student in your class who has had English, who have studied English abroad before. There is a chance that you can never beat that student because they have like, I don't know how to explain this. This is a pretty tough question, to be honest. But I would say that to me, there had been some classes, there had been some reading material that I could never catch up with. But then there are students who would do the reading material and they would go over it. Like they would read 2,000 pages of reading material and then they would do some extra reading as well. So it's all up to you. If you're a good student, it's not necessarily more difficult to study in Korea.
Yeah, I think also a lot of Korean dramas, they portray their students as like super hardworking and there's like cult of learning. Well, it turns out that is true. During
what I was so impressed with personally is how much grasp of, this might sound stereotypical, but it really isn't. It's not stereotypical. I was very impressed because when I was in Iran, I studied mathematics in high school, because in Iran, we pick majors in high school, and my major in high school was mathematics and physics. So I studied mathematics in high school, and I was like one of the top students in high school, and I studied in one of the top high schools of my country. It was not that, it was pretty big deal. And then I came here and I started like learning some, I started studying with some Korean students here, and then I realized how much I don't know math. And these people, they were talking about some math concepts that I was like, how do you know this? And they were like, yeah, we learned this in middle school. And I felt pretty silly. So just so you know,
Wow.
that
wow.
is pretty much the extent of it. But then
Yeah,
again,
that
I come
is-
from a pretty we are not that strong in education in Iran. So
Yeah.
you guys
during
are
your
different.
I'm not sure we're different. During your presentation, you have like highlighted explicitly several times that knowledge of Korean language is extremely important. So do you have any tips how to learn Korean well? Are there like any websites or apps that you probably used and found it useful?
Personally, I was one of the people who was very resistant to this learning Korean language thing. That's why maybe I am emphasizing it more and more to others to learn. I started learning Korean when I absolutely had to, which was when I started working in an office, and I was like, if I want my ideas to be heard, I have to learn how to present them. So for me, to tell you to give you tips is read as much as you can, like read as many books as you can in Korea. Like there is never enough when it comes to reading. Like reading can take you places. I personally read so many English books to learn English, and I started actually implementing the same strategy for my Korean language skill, and it's really helping. It has a huge impact. Read as many books as you can. It does not necessarily have to be like Korean language learning books. It can be like a novel, I don't know, like a middle school kids storybooks. You can start with those. They're fun, and they have basic vocabulary. That can help a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for advice. That's actually pretty universal advice to like many languages that you need to learn. I think we got a lot of questions about social interactions. So I assume there are many foreigners because of the internationalization that you have mentioned. Therefore, how do Koreans in general, not only students, interact with foreigners? Are they nice to them? Have you encountered any conflicts, maybe?
I personally have never encountered any conflict when I have been interacting with Koreans, but I am not the right person to discuss this, to be honest. I do not speak for foreigners' general experience of Korean culture and Korean experience and foreigners' experience in Korea. This is a little bit of a dark side of Korean society. For disclosure, I have become a Korean citizen since 2 weeks ago, so I am allowed to disclose this information with you guys now because I'm officially a Korean person now. So I can talk about it. Korean society is too much into looks. So when you are pretty, you get away with a lot of things. And I am considered as a pretty person. I am sorry for saying this, but it's just what they have been telling me. I am considered beautiful, so I get away with a lot of things in Korea. So I have been treated with a lot of privilege in Korea. So to answer your questions, no, I have never been treated badly in Korea. I have always been treated with respect. And I was always like, I remember all the time when I came to Korea, I was like, wow, is this heaven or what? Like, why is everybody so nice to me? Why is this is such a lovely country. I'm in love with this country. And then I met some of my friends who were less fortunate than me. And they were also foreigners. and their experiences of how Koreans treat foreigners were completely different than mine. So I do not think that I can speak for how Koreans in general treat foreigners. But I have to tell you that also even those friends have their negative experiences were also limited. So it's not like all Koreans are bad to foreigners who look not pretty, or all Koreans are good to foreigners who look pretty. That's not the case. It's like there are good and bad people in every country. Korea is not an exception, but I would say that Korea, like every other country, does generalize people. So if a foreigner goes out and does something stupid, it's possible that for a while Koreans would be like, all foreigners are stupid. So that can happen, but that happens in every country. So Korea is not an exception to that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting insight that I didn't really think of. You just mentioned that you got your citizenship. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you talked a lot about the different types of visas, but so what about the citizenship? How exactly did you get Korean citizenship? Any tips on that?
So there are so many different, okay, Korea is, a lot of foreigners actually disagree with what I am telling you now, but I personally believe that the foreigners who do disagree with this are foreigners who are not good at gathering documents. So there are several rules in Korea, and as long as you know the rules, as long as you know the law and you know the kind of documents that you have to provide, you can apply for several programs. So there are several naturalization rules, naturalization programs, and I was eligible for one of these naturalization programs that was actually terminated in 2018, December 25th. And I applied for that naturalization program in December 20th, 2018. So 5 days before it was terminated, I applied for it. So it's no longer, no one can apply for that program anymore, but I applied for it and I was eligible for it. So back then, that program existed. But right now for naturalization program, you can look at my slide. You can share the slide that I prepared for you guys. So the naturalization program that exists at the moment is like this. You get your F2 visa. Once you have your F2 visa for 2 years, you can apply for your F5 visa. Once you get your F5 visa, 5 years after having 3 or 5 years after having your F5 visa, you are eligible to apply for naturalization. And then you go through the process. So they have made it much more simpler than what I applied for. But then you have to go through the whole, what do you have to do to get your F2 visa? What do you have to do to get your F5 visa? So those things happen now. So you have to go through those rules.
Okay. Yeah, I have one more question on the list, the one of more prepared question, and then we can proceed to the questions from the audience. So the last question is, a person writes, I heard that Koreans are tough and aggressive in their business practices. Is it true? And is doing business in South Korea easier than in your own country of origin?
That's one of the questions. I saw that question among the list of prepared pre-existing questions, and I really didn't understand it. What do you mean by tough in business? Like they hit you when they do business, or like how can you be tough when you do business?
Maybe they meant something like intense.
No, I mean like most of my business meetings with the CEO is that we get the people drunk and we have them sign contracts. No, I'm just joking. No, that would be illegal. We don't do that. No, it's like we are actually, that's opposite of what I experienced. At least in my company, we believe in the whole Chong, like it's a Korean concept, which means like basically empathy, I would say, is the closest meaning that I have to the word Chong, which is believing that everybody is a human being and we're all in this together, and like have feelings for one another, and we're all fighting a fight tough, you know, a tough fight. So I actually found that Koreans are much kinder compared to other people. And I always continuously, at least for my CEO, I continuously have to warn him that, dude, this person is lying to you. Like, stop being so silly. Like, don't trust the things that they're telling you. So it might be my CEO. He might be a really nice, genuinely nice person, but that's not my experience. I have been conned. I have saved my company personally from being conned by foreigners way more than us trying to con other people. So my experience was actually other way around. And about like surviving, whether it's easier to survive business in Korea. Koreans are competitive, like, but I believe my personal experience, I feel like they are honest and hardworking. At least the Koreans that I have met. I have not had the pleasure of meeting all the 70 million Koreans that are out there, but the ones that I have met and I have worked with, they are honest and hardworking, and they make sure that they do their fair share of the burden. So if you want to slack off and, you know, advance, this is not your place. So no, it's harder in Korea to get ahead versus Iran, because in Iran, I could just lie and get ahead. That doesn't work in Korea.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for so many insights that a lot of us didn't know. I think we can proceed to the questions in the chat. So there's a question from Tansulu. She writes, "Thank you for your speech, Miss Mina. Have you ever faced some kind of discrimination as a foreigner in South Korea?" I think we have already covered that, right? If there is anything additional that you want to add.
Discrimination? Not in a negative way. I have faced a lot of positive discrimination, so no. If it's positive, it's not discrimination. So.
Okay. Next question, Agirke writes, "Dear Miss Mina, what can you talk about the competition among students in the university?"
Well, again, I'm telling you, Korean students are, they experience high school a lot different than, I don't know how high school life is over there, but in Iran, for example, it's pretty laid back. In Korea, Korean life, high school life is very, very tough on people. And I kind of felt like people, some of the students that I met in college here, sometimes I felt like they don't even know what it means to have a real friend. Like it feels like they are always feeling like they're in constant competition with each other. So it's they are competing. It means life for them. Sometimes difference between an A and an A plus would mean the difference between getting into a Samsung or just an unknown company for them. So it would mean a total different standard of life. And they are being graded on the curve here in Korea. So that would mean a lot of difference for them. So the competition is severe, but then again, like, I don't think that will be something that you have to concern yourself with, as long as you are really doing your share of the work. And if you're working hard, why would you be so worried about competition?
Yeah, what
it's
about,
like the lion doesn't have to worry about the competition with the gazelle.
What if you like ask for help from local students? If you're, I don't know, missing something on the classes, or is there like a collective preparation for exams? Have you ever experienced something like that?
Yeah, they have been always such dears. They have always helped me out. They always, like, I never had any problem with people not helping me out with something I needed. And yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those are not true. Do not listen to those people. Those are mean people. So like, I know where that question is coming from. So, okay, basically I have heard a lot from people who are blaming their lack of social skills on other people's meanness, and that is not fair. If you do not put in the extra efforts to make friends and make nice with other people, that does not mean other people are not nice to you. Put in the extra efforts, make friends, be nice to other people. Do not expect other people to be nice to you if you're not being kind. You know, kindness is a two-way street.
Thank you. Ayım asks in the chat, thank you for your presentation. Could you give us some tips into being admitted to and securing a scholarship to study in Korea? And could you tell us what your major was and what skills you think were necessary for a foreigner to secure a job in the private sector in Korea?
Okay, sure. Like university is actually pretty one of my specialties. Again, like what I want to say is document provision. I did not know this is not something that not that many people are. It's not the skill with a lot of people. So you know, every university like do a study on the university that you want to get in, and take a look at their admission information and see what kind of documents they want you to provide for them, and like go through that list religiously and provide every single document that they want from you, and make sure you're not missing even one document, because the difference between, you know, one document missing there would mean you're gonna miss it, because no one else there will be, you know, I don't know how to explain this clearly enough, but you know, sometimes some people think that I have been missing only one document, how come I didn't get it? The competition is tough, and there are people that are not missing any of these documents, and the difference between, you know, the competition between them is whether they missed one virgula or not. So you have to be making sure that you are not missing any of the documents. So go lock down the university that you're interested in, look at the documents that they are looking for. And if they want, for example, a TOEFL 110 for you to be admitted there, you make sure that you get a 115. And if they want you to, for example, bring in 2 recommendation letters from your professors, bring them 4. Like always try to, you know, top what they are asking you to bring in. What I studied was I studied like international development studies, and but the requirements for me, they were not, for example, for the major that I studied, they wanted us to have English language proficiency level. They didn't even want TOEFL, they wanted TOEIC, and the test for TOEIC was like much simpler than the TOEFL that I took, and I brought them like a stronger test result than they wanted for English. And later on, when I talked to the head of the department for international development studies, the lady herself informed me that bringing in that English result and like submitting a more stronger, like how do you say, a more difficult English test than she had needed me to, was one of the main reasons she accepted me. So she was telling me that topping the requirements, like upping the requirements, was one of the main reasons that she has actually accepted my my documents. I'm sorry, my English is fading. I think I'm getting closer to my language shutting down. So she told me that. And what was the second part of your question? May I ask again?
The second part, and could you tell us what your major was and what skills you think are necessary for a foreigner to secure a job in
Nazek, can you, I don't know, could you hear that? I'm reading it from the chat, Mina. It says, what was your major and what skills are necessary for a foreigner to secure a job in the private sector?
Okay, private sector. Securing a job in the private sector is actually pretty much is simpler than securing a job in the non-private sector in Korea. So all you need to do is get a company that is willing to sponsor your visa. So and that means that you find a job advertisement that matches and in which you are matching the requirements that they are needing. And you do the interview, they accept you, and they are telling you that they are okay to sponsor your visa and you can get the job. So there are so many job advertisements out there. So to tell you, for me, when I applied for the job, I actually applied for only one job and I got in right away. But when we were applying for my husband, mostly the reason that I got in, I'm not saying that I was wow. The reason that I got in was because they were looking for an Iranian speaker. It was back in the day when the relationship between Iran and South Korea, Iran and the world were normalized. So the company, my current company, they were looking for an Iranian speaker to handle their business with Iran. So that's why I got in right away, because I was apparently the only strong Iranian candidate back then. But for example, for my husband, who recently got a job, like actually 2 weeks ago, he got a job. We applied for more than 364 job positions, and he got 5 interviews, and he got a call back to 3 of them, and he signed contract with 1 of them. So you look into the job interviews. There are several online websites in Korea that you can upload your resume and you can post your information, like Saramin, Job Korea, and Wanted, like 3 of them. I can share the information later with you, or I can post them in the chat. You can upload your information there, and it allows you to actually keep posting your job, your resume to different employees, and if they like you, they will contact you back for an interview. So those people will set up an interview with you, and they will, if they are okay, they will sponsor your visa. So there is no specific requirement, but as a foreigner, you have to get a job that is related to the major that you studied in university, or you have to get a job that would help out South Korea to increase their export measures inside of Korea. Their export measures for Korea, not inside of Korea. Anyways, which is what I do. Like we do exports throughout the world. My company, we do cosmetics and skincare exports to 64 different countries in the world, and I am responsible for about 24 of them. So that's how I got my visa sponsored back in the day when I needed a visa. So that's how you can get a visa in Korea in private sector. Either the job has to be related to the major you studied, or it has to be related to increasing South Korea's export.
Yeah, I think that also touches the next question that we have, is how can one get F2 visa and what are the requirements?
I am sorry, I did not hear that question.
The question was, how to get an F2 visa? What are the requirements?
Okay, once you have an E7 visa, if you studied like okay, first of all, these rules change like every year. So by the time that you come to Korea and you study and you want to apply for F2 visa, these rules might have changed. So when you are applying for this visa, there's this number 1345 that you call and you ask them, you give them your personal information, and they tell you what documents you have to submit to get the visa that you want to get. But at the moment, there is this point system, which is out of 150, and you have to get 80 points to be eligible for an F2 visa. So this point system, it has several criterias, and these criterias differ. Like one of the criterias is age. Like if you are 25 years old, you get maximum point for age. If you are like less than 25, you get less. If you're more than 25, you get less. You know, it like gets more and less. Depending on how much salary your job is currently paying you, you get more or less points. The degree you studied. If you studied in science and engineering, you get more points. If you studied in human sciences, humanities, you get less points. If you studied arts, you get less points. Did you study bachelor? Did you study master's? Did you study PhD? You get different points. What school did you study in? Did you study in like in Seoul National University, Korea, or like one of the Sky universities, Seoul National University, Korea, the Yonsei, like depending on the school you studied in. And did you take those Korean integration classes? What level of Korean language class do you have? Like there are different points. If there is like a list, and you can check how many points you have. And it really depends on when you're applying. It changes every time.
And I think, so as you mentioned, Mina, you're involved in the cosmetic industry, international exports. And the last question we've got here on the chat is related to that. It's going to be very interesting for you. Nazarke, would you like to tell her what the question is? It's a long question, but it's someone interested in importing Korean beauty products to Kazakhstan. So maybe you can wrap up your talk with a little marketing discussion.
Am I audible enough? It seemed.
Now it's okay.
Okay.
Sometimes it's okay now, Nazarke.
Yeah, so the question is, I wanted to start beauty business of exporting Korean beauty products to Kazakhstan. How much hard it will be to do? For example, there are a lot of brands that are popular in Korea, like Espoir, Olive Young, but they are absent in Kazakhstan. So I wanted to let Kazakhstani people try these products and make business. Do you think that this idea can be successful?
Okay, first of all, Sephora and Olive Young are not brands. They are distributing retail hubs in which different brands go there, give them their products, and ask them to distribute their products too. And I don't think if Kazakhstan has those kind of distributing hubs or not, but a lot of Korean brands actually want to be in Olive Young or Sephora here in Korea as well. My company's brands are not in those distributing hubs. My company is the owner of Mizone and Village 11 Factory and Agata Cosmetics. We're actually in Kazakhstan. We're pretty big in Kazakhstan right now. Not right now. We have been, I mean, right now as well. We have been in Kazakhstan since 2019. And we have an exclusive distributor there. And we have like our own store. We have our franchise there that we run our store there. I should have gotten this information in advance. I did not think you guys would be interested in it. I can share them with you later. But what you can do is that a lot of well-known brands that are already in Kazakhstan, that are well-known Korean brands that are already in Kazakhstan, they already have exclusive distributorship agreements with big companies. So you would have like really little chance to do with big brands as a startup company. So what you can do if you are a startup company and you want to start is to start with smaller brands, because K-beauty right now, K-beauty and Korean cosmetics is like it's really popular. So every company, there are a lot of Korean cosmetics and skincare companies that they want to export, because Korean government is giving a lot of incentives to a lot of companies to export internationally. So there are so many new companies being built every day. So there are so many brands at the moment, and a lot of them are actually export focused. So you can find new brands in Korea and sign contracts with them. And before signing the contracts with them, you have to study them and see if they have future, if you feel like they will have a good future or not. And how you can do that is you have to study the CEO and the representative of that company to see if they will have future. And then you sign the contract with them and you start working with them. But the thing with Korean cosmetics and skincare industries is that all of them have really good ingredients and good qualities, because Korean government is pretty strict with the kind of ingredients that it allows in the skincare products to exist. So pretty much everything has good quality. And the market in Kazakhstan, as long as something is made in Korea, it's pretty much easy to sell actually in Kazakhstan, because it has a good quality, it has relatively cheap prices, so it will be a relatively easy trade. But you will have to take a look at the brands that are not already rooted, and that would be difficult, because Kazakhstan is one of the first markets these companies target, because they know that that market is big, and a lot of them actually start with that market. My company started with Kazakhstan, so good luck.
Okay, Nazirke, do we have any other new questions that haven't already been covered? Where's Nazirke? I think I'm looking at the chat here. I think Nazirke's internet might have gone out or something. I think we've pretty much covered all of these questions. And Professor Ko, you said the recording is going to be available. How will people check back if they want to revisit, or if they joined late? How will they be able to access the recording?
Yes, I'm going to send out email again with the link to the video recording of this session, so everyone can actually watch again what Mina have presented today. Actually, there is one last question, if Mina has a minute to address it. So it's about how it is likely to get a part-time job opportunity as an international students when you're students, or you're able to find a part-time job.
Okay, so a lot of once you come to Korea as a student, you're allowed to work part-time 3 months after your visa, your D2 visa. The D2 visa is the visa you get as a student. So you have to have the D2 visa for 3 months, and after that you can get a visa. You can get a job, part-time job. So if you're working on campus with your university, you don't need to wait for 3 months. You can work on campus anytime, like as soon as you come to Korea. If you find a job on campus, you can work. And you can find work. A lot of campuses in Korea actually find part-time opportunities for their international employees that inform them that they are looking. They would help you out, and they would find you part-time opportunities on campus. And if that doesn't work out, there are actually a lot of restaurants, bars, part-time English teaching positions that are available all around Seoul and a little bit outside of Seoul. It's relatively easy to find part-time jobs for a student. But the key is that your university has to give you permission to work part-time, and they have to say that they believe it will not hurt your studying. So you have to promise them that you maintain a certain GPA while you're working part-time. So that would still be something that you have to promise you would do. But finding a job is easy. I did that when I was studying my master's, so it's not impossible.
And your undergraduate too. You did some tutoring and teaching,
yes.
right?
Yes. I believe I also worked for, I also helped, worked for you a little bit on your project
Right.
on
I
campus.
hired her
So
to
thank
be
you.
my research assistant. That's right.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think this has been wonderful, Mina. Thank you so much for your prepared presentation and for your honest answers to all of these probing questions. And you and I, of course, will be staying in touch. And if there's any burning questions, maybe I can field them and you can talk to people via email if they have questions that didn't get answered this evening. So I want to just thank you to everyone who attended. We've had, at one point I noticed we had 59 people attending. There might have been a little bit over 60. So we had a very good attendance. Thank you, Mina, for being such a wonderful speaker and enriching our knowledge and spending some very enjoyable time with you. So I'll just wrap it up for now. Professor Ko, do you have anything, last minute words you'd like to say?
No, not really. So thank you again, Mina, for your time and sharing your experience. Again, I'm going to share the recorded video of the talk and the slides and all the informations you present today through online. So if you have any questions or you want to go back to some of the things you might missed, so you can actually see that later.
And Professor Park, did you have any final words you'd like to say?
No, I just want to thank Mina for great presentations and sharing your thoughts and experience.
And maybe Professor Cho, Mina emphasized that learning Korean is very important. Do you have anything to say about the Korean language program at NU? Are there more openings for the spring? What is the situation for Korean language learning at NU?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Mina, because she highlighted Korean studies. So thanks to her, I think I can recruit more students for next semester. And next semester, we are going to offer new Korean course advanced level. So now we can provide from beginner level, intermediate level, and also advanced level. So by listening to her presentation, as a Korean instructor, I feel more responsible to teach Korean well at NU, the Korean studies. So thank you for your very informative presentation again, and congratulations getting Korean citizenship.
Yes.
Thank you.
축하합니다.
Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
all of you. And thank you for giving me your time, everybody. I hope it helped. If it helped even one of you, it was worth it. Thank you all for giving me your time.
Thank you, Mina. Thank you. You'll probably be hearing from some of these people in the next few weeks or few months. Okay, I will.
Be honored to help.
Professor Ko, you're going to close it out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Goodbye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Mina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.